Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's the Jade Gemini. Hope you liked that intro. It was actually something that I was like, how am I gonna make this work? I'm not crafty at all. And so I had one shot to get it right and it seemed to come out okay. So hope you like that. But anyways, before we get into what I'm really excited to share with you, of course, thank you so much for this. You would just hit 800 subscribers, which is crazy. I want to definitely thank anybody who has subscribed, and as well Metal Complex. He's been a big help going ahead and promoting the channel, shouting me out, things like that. So if you're not subscribed to him, which you probably are, go ahead and check that out. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into something I am super excited about. So today we're going to be taking a look at this beauty. This is a Pena Knives Apache. Now, Pena knives are something that as soon as I saw them, I'm like, those are really, really cool. But I don't know if I'll ever, get the chance to go ahead and come across one. And over the last couple, month or two, I've really kind of completely changed the collection. I actually made a video of my top 5 favorite knives. And what's so crazy is at the time of making that video, all of that was true. But, shortly thereafter, some things have happened in sort of the knife community and just in general. And I've sort of been reducing, instead of having, 11 different knives, really just having a couple pieces that will have enough density and enough of a soul to actually have enough value, instead of just constantly getting pieces in and out that I'm sort of in love with, sort of not. But let's go and jump right into the knife review on this guy, about what I like, what I love, what I dislike, and if it applies, what is rubbish about the Pena Apache. First thing, let's actually get some size comparisons out of the way. So we have an absolute favorite of mine, pair of 3 right here. So as you can see, you're going ahead and coming into a similar blade size with this guy, but definitely a lot smaller profile. So this is about 2.8 inches, 2.75 inches. Here is the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue. This is probably indicative of a lot of full-size knives. Sabenza, sort of comparison, a Para Military 2 sort of knife, full-size knife, sort of Hinder XM 18 3.5 inch. So this is probably within that size and a comparison of the knives. Another thing we're going to get, I feel like is such a good standard to get, is thickness. Most people have handled the Pair 3 and the PM2, so this thickness is a really good standard to see. So as you can see, the Pena is actually thicker than the PM2. Pair 3. But, let's also close them up. In pocket, it's not even comparable. And I think that's one thing. This is also contoured, so it only peaks at a very short place and also gets thinner on the edges. And on the edges, the Pena is smaller. So, spine thickness as well. Kind of hard with the PM Pair 3. Gosh, sorry, a little rusty at this, because it is thick and it thins out. But it's thickest. It's a thick blade stock, right? It is a little bit thinner overall with the Pena, but it is still I would say medium thickness. It's not thin, which we will go ahead and talk about that. So kind of get that out of the way, its size, overall shape, everything like that. So let's jump right in. So what I like about this knife is just materials. Just looking at this, there's a lot of good going on here. You have M390, which if you maybe don't know from my name, I'm a pretty big fan of M390. I think it's a really great steel. It's everything you need, maybe even a little bit more, and nothing that you don't, especially for an EDC knife like this that is really good to carry every single day. It's a really good steel with low maintenance, keeps an edge for a very long time, has some moderate toughness, and the sharpenability is, medium. You also have natty micarta, which is my favorite, just micarta, and titanium raw, which I absolutely love. So there's a lot going on good here. I've also like to put a little bit of effort into the clip. I've seen a lot of clips lately from a lot of companies that are just bend over clips, and that's not always bad. I mean, like this clip is perfect. It's like a Lynch clip, basically. It works awesome for this type of knife. But for something like this is a little bit more pocket jewelry. So I'm glad that they just, did little things nice here with the pocket clip. Also, another thing that is really nice is the hardware on this knife. The way the screws are so prominently machined is just really, I don't know, impressive. It's just something that does stand out. And, for them to put that much little extra effort into the knife itself, is a good thing. Another thing that is awesome about this knife that I like is the overall fit and finish. I mean, this knife really begs the question if you need to go into that sort of custom range, which every custom isn't hyper finished. There's the brute to forge look, with mammoth tusk, and there's a lot of different types of customs, right? But this really does just punch so extremely hard. This isn't a cheap knife, but you do get a lot for your money. The finishing on the blade is sublime. You get this, I think, hand satin finish that is also on the swedge. And then you get a finer satin that is opposite direction. So where this is horizontal, this is vertical. And then that satin goes all the way down the blade, unanimously, all the way to the tip. They just did an awesome job with it. Then you get a decent bead blasting sort of finish on all the titanium parts, titanium backspacer, nice micarta that is somewhat tacky, but it doesn't feel like, which it is not bad, but it doesn't feel like that sort of ripped, tattered micarta that almost you feel the hairs with. This feels a lot more like smoothed down, and things like that. Also, a little other attention to details, like how perfect that this is rounded and has these little corners that meet and flow into this, so it's easier to put in and out of the pocket as you're pushing it down inside of the pocket, and it's perfectly mirrored. Also, there's this chamfering on the edge of the titanium that runs into the lock that also runs perfectly into the micarta all the way around 100%. Also, everything meets up. When you run your finger here, it feels like one piece all the way around. They just did a super awesome job with everything. Centering is, just on it, right? Sharpening as well. Love that there isn't a smile here. And it just looks great and unanimous all the way across from both sides. On the swedge, it perfectly meets up here. One's not farther back than the other. There's just so many things on this knife, and every single one knocks it out of the park. Also, weird to say, but the sharpness out of the box in this thing is insane. Just so sharp, which is good when it comes to a knife in general. Some people might not know how to sharpen it, especially when it's M390. Even if you know how to maybe sharpen your Swiss Army knife, you might not be the best at tapering up, M390 or a harder steel like that. So it's really nice to see that this did come so super sharp out of the box. So there's a lot to like about this. Again, the hardware, fit and finish, over the account, it's thinking about work. Over the knife itself, the materials are all top of the line, premium, and everything like that. What do I love about this knife? Well, the first thing I love is the design. And sort of more, this isn't so much about the Apache as it is Pena in general. like I said, I've seen these knives before and really thought, wow, those are really cool. I'll probably never have one. And then when this knife came about, I got it, and then I was like, as it was in transit, I'm like, you know, but I won't even like it. I'll have it for a little bit at a time, and then it will really, really wear off. But then I got it, and I started, you know, playing with it and feeling it, and just the whole entire use. And so I love the concept, this idea that Pena, he's ended up going ahead and designing these knives off of traditional patterns and really knocked it out of the park with the bolster, you know, more natural sort of material back here. There's also some in like fat carbon fiber that looks really nice, and just all sorts of different, you know, designs. But it really just sort of harkens back to that sort of grandpa's knife, right? But done in the most modern way possible with the modern, you know, techniques to make this knife. And he has ones that are like a trapper, like a Barlow. He has ones that are like a dog leg that's sort of, you know, bent backwards. One called the Raptor that's this harsh, really sort of almost futuristic Warrenclyffe style blade, and one that has sort of a pen blade that's more like the Swiss Army knife, and then the Apache here. And each and every one has slight variations on the way the handle's shaped. The blade, of course, is shaped differently. The thickness, everything is custom designed instead of just having the one chassis and then just popping in different blades and calling those the Barlow and blah, blah, blah. He's really putting in effort and design into each and every one of the knives, and I just love that idea. The next thing I love about this knife is just how it carries. I mean, this in the pocket just disappears. I mean, it's that easy. I don't even have to go more into it. The next thing I love about this knife is the action. It is just, I nickname all my knives, right? You know, cappuccino lock stick. This one is named Scar because it has an imperfection in the blade that's actually like an indentation. And because it's kind of spooky, I feel like that's a cool name, Scar, right? This should just be called Arthritis because I fidget the absolute daylights out of this. I mean, and there's so many different ways to do it. Like this, I'm like, oh, is that so if like you give it to like, you know, your grandpa, they can open it, but you can actually get your finger in there and flick that, right? But on the surface, it looks like a traditional knife, right? So it's really cool in that way. That we'll talk about in a little while. But yeah, it's really cool in that way, and just the action is so great. You can pull up, flick it, it's not super hard. You can, again, round it off, and it is just so fun to play with, so fun to fidget. Next is the action itself, not just the fidgetability, or maybe I started with action, and then I talked about fidgetability, but it's all in the same. The action, when I first got it, is like, hey, this is good enough. And then each and every day, kind of like when I had my Hinderer, it just keeps like, you just open it, and then you open it one time, you're like, whoa, what just happened between one flick ago and now? Because this is just like, wow, I don't know what has happened, but just like, and when I first got this, I thought the blade, I'm gonna wipe that off, that's kind of gross, sorry. So anyways, when I first got this, I'm like, this won't drop shut, but it's fine because the action is really good and it makes nice audible noises as well. But now, the more and more and more I play with this, I'm like, this possibly, I mean, it's so insanely smooth, right? But this could possibly get to that point where it drops free, or it almost has so much resistance. I mean, it is just ridiculously smooth. And if you don't know, this is made by Riot, which, you know, Riot, even though it's a Chinese OEM, I think everybody and their brother knows that they're just a complete, usually step different from Wii, Best Tech, even though those guys can do great work. And some of the others, Kaiser, Riot's kind of held to a higher standard. I mean, I know guys that won't buy, you know, Chinese, but they would have a Riot, right? And that says something. And this knife has definitely made me a believer of that. Also, odd thing, but this knife kind of asked to be used, which I do love. This is kind of a knife that you could use and then maybe pass down like a real traditional. I don't know the story behind this knife, I got this knife at, for a cheaper price than the full thing, but it has like scuffs on the pivot and has little tiny trails. No dings or anything, but little snail trails everywhere. But yet the blade is 100% virgin. And again, there's no real dings or wear anywhere. There's also no blade play, which I absolutely love. I almost wonder if this is like a showroom model and people like fidgeted at a counter. Oh, I dropped it or what, and then some scratches happen, which I'm almost kind of, I'm fine with because I got it at a discount and it almost kind of adds a little character, sort of rusticness to the knife. So, it's just kind of cool, little side story. But like I said, the action on this thing is great. The last thing, the design overall with all the different designs and sort of bringing back that traditional, but the last thing is actually the ergonomics and just sort of smartness of design. When I talked about the baby banter, one thing I really was impressed with is that all the different attention to detail and design that went into that knife, and this is very similar. You can see with this knife, it's very simple, but it's so surprising that, this sort of bigger butt on the end and slimness, how much this actually just locks in. Like, it locks in like you would think the Pena 3 does, which is like the most ergonomically curvy, knife I could think of. And this is just a simple swoops, right? But the way that locks in and this long jimping and you just get your finger in there, and also the smartness of design that this extends only when it's open, but then when it's closed, it looks, shorter. But this, it sort of extends the surface of the knife even more in hand. It's just, no matter how you hold it, it is really, really an awesome knife. And it just continuously pick this up every single day, even though I have some other great knives that I've shown you and some others that I haven't. This is just what keeps coming in my pocket. It's just such a joy. So that's all the things I love about the knife, the action, it's made by Riyadh, and I don't think they've sacrificed any time or effort for Pena to actually make this. The overall design and concept of the knife, the carryability, how it fits into an ADC. This knife will wear and look cooler over time, kind of patina, at least with these particular materials. There's so much to like about this knife. Things I don't like about this knife. It's hard because I like this knife so much, but there are some things that if it was up to me, I would change. The first is the blade thickness. Going upon the whole idea of sort of, grandpa's knife. When I think of like an old buck or case knife or something like that, Victorinox, right? If you're me, and that's my thing. I think of these super thin, slicey knives that, you're going to cut an apple with. Back in the day, these old, stockmans and trappers and things like that, they were used to like skin small game, critters, things like that. So they were super thin, slicey, everything like that. I think like this knife is not a knife you're going to baton with. It's not a hardcore user. It's solid, rock solid, right? But at the same time, that's just not its intended use. So to me, they could have made this stock thinner. And because of that, it's pretty slicey up here on this model with the thinness. But I'm sure, with the other models, and I've experienced this too, I'm cutting with this. It doesn't have that sort of pinpoint accuracy that you do with like the other two knives that I've showed you, because it's not so tall. It has this flat, and it is pretty thick. So when you're cutting, it kind of wanders. Like I cut paper today to ship something off, and it was like this, instead of like the, these, two knives where I'm just like, and it's just like arrow straight, right? Not that it doesn't cut because it is so sharp, but it's just not super thin behind the edge. And with this sort of knife, I just feel like it would just work with the persona so well if it was thinner. The next thing is just a minor annoyance that I don't like, but with the knife, if you look, there's these really nice relief spots where you can put your thumb, kind of telling you, hey, put your thumb here and open the knife to relieve it. But the thing is there isn't enough like cammed actuation or leverage where it passes the detent usually, unless you were pushing like super hard. And then if you do get it, what happens is this comes down and smacks right here. And that's why you see this, and this, because Fidget Boy, arthritis knife, has just been whacking that every so often. You have to kind of come up here high, have it bounce off your nail, and then shake it down, or just do like a relief off the detent. Oh my God. And, actually, sorry, it's so smooth. And actually go ahead and, then let the blade travel down. Sorry, lost my train of view. So that's a thing, that biting, again, if they just move that relief a little bit up, it would make it where, I'm supposed to put my finger here. And I just feel like it would make more sense, like matching usability to, form versus function is what I'm saying. Like, don't put that there if that's not the best place to put your finger. Put it up a little bit more. That's my thought. Simple as that. Also, when you do put it up here, I like that this is flat against the knife, but what will happen is this locking surface here is sharp. That's the problem. It's not a hot spot, but what will happen is when you relieve it, if your finger's there, it stops it. See? And so I'm sitting here shaking it, and I'm like, oh, okay, let me go down here, do that, and then this. Another thing, again, this is more just a front flipper thing and more of a learning experience, but if you hold the knife kind of high like this, and you're doing like that, the sort of, flipper tab, will go ahead and catch and not, allow it to drop easily. So it's just a learning experience. That's more of an observation than anything. Again, these are really me trying to pick whatever I can. Again, the knife, I would like for it to be thinner. I love this extended area, but it is something that this area catches your thumb, it doesn't want to drop. And then this relief area, I believe it should be higher because it indicates you should put your finger here, but when you do, this blade, or probably any of the other blade shapes, hit your fingernail, especially a knife that is so darn fidgetable. I would also like to have seen jimping there, but that's probably not for everybody. What I think is rubbish about the knife, absolutely nothing. Oh, the only other thing, just an observation, if you were cutting things, as you can see, there's like gunk that gets in there. You have to kind of like clean it out. Kind of looks gross. And if I was Nick Shabazz, I would say, I can't even perform a Nick Shabazz accent right now. But anyways, I would say, guys, no, not even gonna try. Anyways, I would say that, you would get like rot in there, and if you're trying to cut an apple or something, you're gonna get that into your food. So that's an observation. Not something I really have to deal with, but it does look gross. So that's what I dislike about the knife. Nothing's rubbish. Knife's amazing. I would say if you're thinking about it, it is worth the hype. I can't imagine not having this knife. And knives like this have not really existed so much. I mean, I have a knife, it's cool, I like different things, but this knife just looks so great, kind of like the Troodon that I had, where if you just stare and look at it, it just looks fast, it looks like it's moving, it's attractive to the eye constantly when you're looking into different directions and designs. And I think that that's what's got people so psyched about these knives, is just because it is a perfect blend of, it looks modern, right? With these edges and the way everything's built, but it looks traditional. It's like when they took the Viper that they made in the 90s, and then they made the new Viper, even though it wasn't so popular, it looked like the exact same shape as the old Viper, just modernized. It's like they shedded its skin and it was this new young Viper. Same thing with the Challenger, right? Or, there's a lot of different cars that you could kind of say like that. It's just this perfect classic beauty with all the new modern essentials that you would love. So, yeah, this knife is awesome. If you've been thinking about it, it is worth its weight in gold. I know, as Metal Complex jokes about this, I know that he says, small knife, not big knife, but expensive, not worth it. This is like that perfect example of this, because this just hits so much more. This has, even though it is from a Chinese company, it just has that soul that like American knives have that make you like want to keep them, where like you buy like some, even a nice Wii or something, and you're like, that was fun, trade it. This is like, no, I'm gonna have this in my pocket till I'm 68 years old, even older. You know, this is gonna be, you know, it's just amazing. And if you've been thinking about getting one, I 100% say it's worth you saving up. It's worth you skipping out on other knives. If you can come across one, get it. And I am going to say you will highly, well, you won't regret it. So that's it. That is arthritis. So I hope you enjoyed this. And I appreciate all your support again. You taking time out of your day to watch this video, as there are so many other great content creators. If you like content like this, there's definitely more to come as we hit 800 subscribers, and I'm still trying to get to 1,000 by the end of the year. So we are trucking along. Thank you so much. If you, like I said, if you like this, please give it a like, subscribe, and comment down below. I love talking to you guys about any little thing and having that fellowship with you. Of course, everybody stay safe. Have a great weekend coming up. Take care. Peace.